Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40K Universe. I am your host, Gershwin, and you are watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we continue going over our battle series as we get into the Imperial Guard versus the Orks. So we're going to be talking about various encounters between the Greenskins and the Defenders of Man. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40K lore videos every single day, and don't forget to hit the little bell notification icon right next to subscribe to stay updated. It helps out the channel when you do so. And if you enjoy our content, thank our patrons on Patreon. It's because of them that we can do this. There's a link in the description that will take you to our Patreon if you guys want to support. Thank you ahead of time. But with that said, let's get into 40 facts on the Imperial Guard versus the Orks. The Astra Militarum, also referred to as the Imperial Guard, is mankind's primary combat force and first line of defense from all xenos that endanger the existence of the human race, and one of the most numerous and aggressive alien threats mankind has faced since they left Terra is the Ork race. The Imperial Guard fights punishing battles of attrition in which incalculable lives are sacrificed to push back the Greenskin menace, a battle that has many victories but seems to have no end in sight. The Cadian 81st Armored Regiment of the Imperial Guard, known informally as the Rolling Thunder, is a veteran armored regiment that forms part of the 18th Imperial Guard Army Group Exelon. The 81st Armored Regiment's earliest confirmed combat was on the planet of Palmaros. There, the regiment fought a losing battle against the Ork forces of Godskull Magorok Thraka, which was seeking to conquer the world. During the campaign, all of the regiment's 10 companies took heavy casualties, and were amongst the last Imperial Guard regiments to withdraw before the planet was destroyed by Thraka's fleet of Ork rocks. The 81st Armored Regiment's last recorded operation on Palmaros was a classified operation to Gotenz, a city far from the 81st Forward Base. 3 tanks of the regiment's 10th Company, known as the Gunheads, under Sergeant Oscar Wolf, escorted a Chimera carrying 3 Adeptus Sororitas agents who were tasked with extracting a life-saving bone marrow sample to save the life of an important Imperial general and boost the morale of the Imperial soldiers extracted from Palmaros. As the group entered Lugo's Ditch, Sergeant Wolfen's Lehman Russ tank, the Last Rites, suddenly stopped. The tank of Sergeant Stryberg, the Steel-Hearted, carried on and hit a mine, wrecking the vehicle's tread and immobilizing it. An Ork force then ambushed the Imperial column, but the surviving tanks, the Last Rites, the Sororitas Chimera, and the Champion of Sebra, a tank of Sergeant Cole, broke out of the Greenskin ambush, leaving Sergeant Stryberg behind as a decoy. Unfortunately, Cole's tank had taken heavy damage and was delaying the rest of the column, and so it turned back to help delay the Orks. Arriving in the city of Gotenz, the Last Rites and the Sororitas Chimera made their way to the city's Imperial Cathedral, delivering false messages of salvation from the Orks to the people in the city, as they went on to give them hope in their final hours before the Ork conquest. After the bone marrow was extracted from the right donor by the Imperial Sororitas, the 2 tanks proceeded back to the 81st base, but the crew of the Last Rite were forced to abandon their tank to use the faster Chimera. The crew of the Last Rites and the 3 Sororitas boarded the final Imperial transport, heading off-world just before the Ork rock slammed into the world of Palmaros, and the rest of the 81st Armored Regiment proceeded forward to the world of Golgotha, where the Operation Thunderstorm was about to go underway. Operation Thunderstorm was a mission to extract Commissar Yarrick's abandoned Bandblade Super Heavy tank, the Fortress of Arrogance, from the planet of Golgotha, where it had lain since the last Golgothan war against the Orks, where Commissar Yarrick had been captured and then released in time to face the Orks again for the Third War of Armageddon. The regiment's deployment went well, but Ork anti-aircraft fire scattered the 10th Company far from their intended landing zone when their dropship crash-landed in the desert. As the operation proceeded, the regiment secured the outpost of Karavasa, eliminating the Orks alongside the rest of the Imperial Guard's 10th Armored Division, deployed to the world. Meanwhile, the Gunheads linked up with 6 companies of the 98th Cadian Regiment under Colonel Strom, losing 1 tank in the process. The 2 units merged their forces and proceeded to try and regroup with the main Imperial task force. As they did so, a large body of the Orks drove them into the sandstorm, and another tank was lost after it drove over a cliff in the blind conditions. However, close after that, the forces reached the outpost of Balkar and regrouped with the rest of the 18th Armored Group. Proceeding through the Red Gorge, the 81st Armored Regiment launched a hasty attack on a large Ork fortification. Colonel Vineman's personal shadow sword was used to destroy the fort's gates, but the Ork fighter bombers took out the super heavy tank before it could escape. Command of the regiment then fell to Captain Imrek, who led the regiment in an operation to create a gap in the Ork lines to allow the rest of the 18th Army Group to pass into the Ishwar Mountains. As the 18th Army Group reached the reported location of the Fortress of Arrogance, the famed super heavy tank was no longer there, and so the regiment proceeded toward a large Ork camp, passing through Dark Lac in the process. Upon arriving at the Ork camp, a fierce battle ensued, with the 81st playing a key role in destroying the Ork tanks and artillery. However, the appearance of a rampaging Ork Squiggoth caused havoc within the regiment's battle plans, until Captain Imrek drew the Squiggoth into the Ork lines, creating an orgy of destruction among the regiment's green-skinned foes. After a tense battle, a shot from the Leman Russ Vanquisher pierced the heart of the Squiggoth, bringing it down for good. Pushing into the Ork camp, the 81st tanks came under heavy fire from Ork ambushers and a former Imperial super heavy tank that was modified for their use, later discovered to be the Fortress of Arrogance. The 18th Army Group's commander, General Diveris, ordered no one to fire upon the Fortress of Arrogance, but a missed shot by the gunners of the tank Last Rites II caused Major General Bergen to order all tanks to fire upon the fortress, with a final shot killing the Ork warboss who commanded it. However, the battle had taken a fierce toll on the regiment. Of the 100 tanks in the company at the start of the Operation Thunderstorm, less than 10 remained, including the Last Rites II, commanded by Sergeant Wolf and Captain Imrek's tank, Firebane. Another armored regiment to have gone toe-to-toe with the Greenskins on Armageddon were the Armageddon 339th Steel Legion. This was the armored regiment of the Steel Legion that earned the title Ironheads during the battles for the tank forges of Hive Tempestora during the Third War for Armageddon. So massive was the factory that entire battles were fought within them, with Leman Russ, Chimeras, and Basilisks maneuvering and firing as if they were in the open expanses of Armageddon's ash wastes. At one point, the 339th held a front line by a long convoy belt, along which vital components of the Leman Russ battle tanks moved, even as the battle raged all around them. At the height of the battle, the entire regiment was mounted up in Chimeras that had just rolled off the production line and had not even had a coat of primer applied. The 339th then made a mechanized assault along the length of the factory, smashing through the Ork lines and pursuing the hated foe out into the polluted ash wastes of Armageddon Prime. The Steel Legion's reputation continued with the Armageddon 808th. This was the regiment that was known for its aggressive and hard-charging officers, whose leadership style had earned the regiment a considerable reputation for trying unusual and often quite risky maneuvers to approach the enemy by surprise, or at least at great speed. This regiment first attracted attention during the Imperial Crusade into the Spinward Front, when it became engaged in a bitter and violent battle against a group of Orks on the world of Gamf Magna. Despite the primitive weapons and equipment of the local Ork mobs, they won several victories over the 808th through surprisingly cunning use of terrain, stranding the regiment's transport vehicles in a series of narrow passes, and overwhelming the Imperial soldiers within with their characteristic brutality. The 808th recovered from their losses and proved more successful in later engagements, swearing to avenge themselves upon the Greenskins by seeing every Ork expunged from Gamf Magna, only to be redeployed shortly thereafter, their temper still unquenched in the black blood of the Orks. And those were 40 facts on the Imperial Guard versus the Orks. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, thank our patrons on Patreon. It's because of them that we can do this. Link in the description if you guys want to support us. The cool thing about the Imperial Guard versus the Orks is that it's kind of like a classic. The Imperial Guard are almost always getting beaten on by the Orks, and then the Space Marines come to save the day. So it's fun to see this huge mismatch, especially when the Imperial Guard comes out on top without the assistance of the Skitarii or without the assistance of the Space Marines. If you guys have any suggestions for other epic battles, comment down below, and I hope you guys are enjoying the content. Talk to you tomorrow. This was Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
put my freedom first in any situation.